Hello, everybody. Ricco McAdory here, Identity King. I'm here to help empower you to embrace your true identity, amplify your authority, and dominate your space without compromising your unique value. And so today I want to talk to you about standing out as an empowered leader in an entitled world. Standing out as an empowered leader in an entitled world. Well, what led to this? Well, last week, if you've been following the news or watching the sports world, I watched a situation where someone in particular got fired from coaching. And what I found interesting was it seemed like he was scapegoated. And the particular person who scapegoated him did that with quite a few other people who coached them as well. And so that's just one example of me bringing this out. I'm keeping their name anonymous, but if you know who I'm talking about, if you're in the sports world. But the point of this is not so much about them, but really it's about a trend in the culture that we're in right now. That it seems like it's easier to blame for the decisions that we make or we as leaders make and don't want to take the heat or the smoke from the decisions we made. I've seen it in the sports world, I've seen it in the ministry world, I've seen it in the uh, other areas of leadership, you name it, other spheres of influence, where people don't want to take responsibility because it's too much to handle the consequences of the decisions that were made that led to the consequences. Case in point, I would tell my sons and daughter, I would always tell them, and they're teenagers now, excuse me, but I would tell them when they were younger, like every decision has a consequence. Every decision. Where did I come up with that? Well, when I was in high school and I played sports, right? As I look back at it at the age of 46, back then as a youngster, you're thinking like, well, I quit my high school team because I believe for me, I thought it was very political in what was being done with coaching and all. And others who knew I was much better than the people in front of me didn't. I didn't play right as much, and I knew something was up. So it wasn't like I couldn't, right? But I knew some other stuff was up, and I was just like I didn't like how that felt. And what I did was I felt, man, I'm just gonna walk away from this. I'm done. And so I tried to pretty much stick it to the coach, thinking that my quitting would hurt the coach more than it would hurt me. Didn't realize that years later, I remember him saying to me, like, don't quit. Like, if you quit now, you'll always quit. And I was so emotionally enraged with him and the system that he had. And I was like, man, forget it. I'm gone. I don't care what you say, right? So what was I doing? I was projecting. I didn't take responsibility because I felt it was easier for me to blame him for why, for whatever reason, whether my reason was good or his was good or whatever the case may be. I was blaming him and not taking responsibility, right? What was it about me that I did? Maybe was it my attitude? Sometimes you can be the better talented person, but you might not have the best attitude to be coachable and teachable at the moment. I'm just saying, right? Giving you that as an example, right? Empowered, not entitled, or standing out as an empowered leader, not an entitled one. And what I'm saying is, I see a lot of that pattern today, where it's more entitled people who are in leadership who feel like people that they lead owe them, or they make decisions and they act like they didn't make those decisions at first. So, what am I saying today? Well, I'm going to give you a few keys you can take with you for this moment of time that we have together right now. Thanks for joining now, and those that watch later, I appreciate it. Here's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about three reasons or three things or three facts about entitled people, entitled leaders. But then let's also talk about three things or three things related to empowered leaders. So number one, in entitled people are positioned for distractions. See, when I don't know who I am and I'm entitled, I feel like the world owes me. Now I'm positioned for other people who are intentional to distract me from what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Has anybody besides me, when you felt entitled, because I'm not saying I never did. Oh yeah, I've dealt with it. I've had an entitlement attitude to where I felt like, yeah, I'm right and everybody else is wrong. No, I've had that attitude where I felt like instead of me going after certain things and growing and developing to a certain point, I felt like, man, they should just come to me. Well, let me tell you something. If you were anything like me, then you would realize that, yeah, that may sound good, but here's the thing. Entitled people are open to distractions because now you're starting off right, but then you feel people owe you. So now instead of actually you taking action, you're allowing other people to take the action you should have. But then again, you get upset when those people get the results that you believe you deserve. So you're positioned for distractions. Right. And look, we're on social media right now. You're watching me right now. Hopefully, I'm not a distraction to you. I believe I'm sharing something that's impactful to you. Right. But think about it. If you're entitled and feel like you're owed something, then you could possibly miss what's good for you because you're distracted by what's not good for you. Right. Secondly, number two is entitled people want something for nothing. That means entitled people want all the rewards, but don't want to put in the work and the effort that can actually help the reward be attainable. You see somebody on TV or somebody on YouTube or somebody somewhere, you see how they're glowing, you see how they're shining, you see how they're growing, and you want what they have. You see the fruit of what they have. You see them shining on stage, but you don't see what they did in the dark before they came to the light. You see, I have learned that sometimes we say we want to be like somebody because we see their story, but we do not really we want to be like somebody because we see their glory. But when you really understood the story, and you probably would think twice about that. You probably would think, I'm grateful for where I am and what story I'm going through, right? Because look, sometimes you want to wear shoes that look good to others but don't fit your foot. That means sometimes you want to get to a position where somebody else is, but you're not really developed for that. So you want that something, in other words, you want the platform or the benefits of leadership and the perks of leadership. But what I found is entitled people, entitled leaders want the perks of leadership, but they do not want the process and the price that comes with it. Everybody that wants the stage is not really prepared for the stage, right? Because if right now, if you were actually given an opportunity to stand on stage, what part of you, what about you right now thinks that you're ready? And one of the worst things is trying to get to a stage or a platform you're not ready for or prepared for. But entitled people want something for nothing. Entitled people want miracles, but not process. Entitled people want everyone to like them, but they don't understand the process that when you grow into a certain level, there are going to be people that can't stand you. So you forget about, you focus on what you want, but you don't focus or see the process that you have to go through to become the person necessary to execute what it is in your purpose that leads to the desire or the results that you believe you want. All right. And then also number three, entitled people blame and don't want to take responsibility for their own actions, right? Own decisions. You made the decision to marry such and such, right? And I'm not saying every situation will work a certain way, but you made that decision, right? Obviously, the decision was good enough for you to say yes and make the vow to, right? But then when things didn't go right, there was also a decision that you made, right? Our power, the power God has given us to decide, I believe is impactful. It's amazing, right? Believe it or not, we have the power to decide, but we also have the power not to decide. And what I found is that that entitled people most likely are indecisive people. It takes them a long time to make a decision. Yep. And I say them, but I really say me because I've been and still growing through the process of being a decisive person, not just one time, but every day. All right. So those were the entitled people I listed. Number one, entitled people are positioned for distractions. Number two, entitled people want something for nothing. And number three, entitled people blame others, or they blame and don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. Now let's flip the script. Somebody say flip the script. All right, let's go to the other one. Let's talk about now empowered people. What are the three traits about them that are polar opposites of what I just shared with you about entitled people or entitled leaders? Empowered leaders are intentional, which means that there's focus. One of the great mentors that I heard this from, a guy by the name of Myron Golden, that I really listen to and really respect of what he talks about, and just the things that he shared has really impacted my life, is that he always says this thing that disruption follows intention, right? When you actually make an intentional decision, that's when the distractions are going to come to try to get you off focus from that intentional decision you made. And if here's the thing, there's this illusion or this utopia that when we make a decision, we think that it's always going to be, everything's going to be up and up the first moment we decide. But what I shared recently and I'll share now is whenever you make a decision, empowered people make a decision and they're intentional. They also understand, empowered people realize that growth happens down underneath the ground before you see it above the ground. Write that down. Growth happens down beneath the ground, underneath, where it's unseen before we see the fruit above the ground, which means that there are roots. You have to be intentional about the process, because growth, when you're really growing, you plant the seed, and most time the seed is planted in the ground, and the seed has to grow and germinate in the ground so that the old roots can be dug up or be uprooted. And so the new roots can set in. You see what I mean? When the new roots set in, now you have a healthy foundation so that when you grow, when the storms of life and winds blow, because your foundation is strong, you're not as easily shaken when things or uncertainty things come up in your life, right? But you got to be intentional. It's about being focused on what's most important to you. If you're not focused, then guess what? You open yourself up to be distracted. But empowered leaders, empowered people are focused, because we know what goal we want, and we're willing, because we're focused, we have a clear vision. Now we can identify what the distractions are. All right. All right. And then empowered people understand the cost of winning. Empowered people understand the cost of winning and decide to take action. Look, every light's not going to be green. I wish I could say that they were. And what I mean by that, that means there are going to come some decisions you have to make, and you may not have 100% of the data, right? But there's this leading, I personally believe from God, that as you're flowing in the vision he gave you, there are going to be some times that you don't have all the information in front of you, but there's this discernment that he gives you, this peace that he gives you that surpasses all understanding, that this is the right move and the right road to take. And sometimes what you see with these eyes can fool you to make you think that you may be making the wrong move. But if you're actually walking by faith in him, and guess what? You surround yourself with a circle of winners. Now you can see through these eyes, through the encouragement of not only God himself through his word, but also through people connected to you. And now that confirms, and now you have to make a decision. You look like, okay, well, it takes just as much energy for me to go backward as it does to go forward. So I might as well go forward, right? So when you take the action, what it does, now you can begin to be in position to receive what was already there. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we would rather pray and ask God to be like, God, just give me, just give me, just give me. And sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes he doesn't really just give me. There are times I have to get up and just go and make a decision. And as I go and make that decision, it's not that he hasn't spoken, but he's already spoken through desire, I believe. He's already spoken because it's like, okay, take the next step. And you're shaky, but if you're trusting him and you take the next step, you understand, how can you lose with him? So I understand that every decision I make, I have to decide as an empowered leader, I have to decide and understand the cost of winning. Yeah, it's not going to be every decision that you make is going to be like so so easy to make. It's going to be some challenges with that decision. But the thing I love about that decision, even in the process, I've grown to the point that I love now the person you become in that situation. Yeah. And then number three, empowered leaders take responsibility and have a growth mindset, which means, look, even when I miss it, I'm to a point now where I've learned to be a better receiver of constructive criticism. I've learned to be a better receiver of feedback. And what I find interesting is that if you don't do the work to transform your mindset to be a better receiver of feedback and constructive feedback, what ends up happening is you'll always avoid the truth that you must hear. And the thing I love about the truth is, Jesus said it in John 8, verse 32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Well, the thing about the truth is, it doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. But the truth, when you take responsibility and you really understand that, yes, I did this, it was my decision, I messed up on this. And so I take responsibility. There's something powerful that happens when you do that. Now, this may not be popular because I know we want people to tell us what we want to hear and tell us things that make us feel good. But here's what I found. Sometimes the people who only tell us things we want to hear and make us feel good, all it does, it flatters us, and guess what? It keeps us stuck where we are, and we believe oppressed that's not true. But when you actually surround yourself, take responsibility, and surround yourself with people who you provide or give them the green light to tell you the truth, and you receive it and learn from it, you're much better positioned to grow from that than someone who just tells you good things you want to hear, because all they're doing is lying to you and keeping you in a negative state, or in a state that keeps you comfortable and keeps you so cozy in a place that you have outgrown. There's much more, but because you actually want to hear good things but not the right things, you're staying paralyzed where you are. So that's the three differences, or the differences you saw between an entitled leader versus those who are entitled. And we live in a world right now because, yes, everything is so easily accessible, right? And people want the quick result or want to get something quickly. But then as a result, because everything is so accessible, it's easy to take blame and avoid certain things that we must do to grow. See, I learned this. It's one thing to do and have. You can do and have something, maybe get some results, but you can never become. But it's something much more powerful and impactful when you become it first. When you become it, it positions you and empowers you to do the necessary steps that lead to the results that you deserve, right? So, standing out as an empowered leader in an entitled world, you're more needed now than you realize. You have something valuable on the inside of you that God put on the inside of you because He wants to release it through you. But if you remain silent, but if you remain sitting in the back and never taking steps to go forward and be courageous, what's going to end up happening is not only is it going to hurt you, but it's going to impact or hurt the people around you. When you're silent, or you're invisible, or you remain in obscurity, or you remain in a place where you are not um, you are not bold, when you remain in a place where you're silent, but those who are around you are doing things that are wrong and you know they're wrong, well, then basically what you're doing, you're an accessory to a crime. You're actually giving them the okay that it's fine for them to continue to violate not just you, but the people that you're called to. But when you step up, I believe this wholeheartedly. As an empowered leader, standing out as an empowered leader in an entitled world, I believe this, that when you step up, the people that you're called to can grow up. But if you don't step up, guess what? the people that you're called to, they're going to stay imprisoned, not just physically, but also mentally. I'll leave you with this as I close. For me, someone asked me what keeps me going every day. You know what keeps me going? Even when I don't feel like showing up, even when I don't feel like coming around, even when I feel like wanting to hide, when sometimes the pressure picks up, you know what keeps me coming? I realize that if I don't show up and be the person God created me to be, helping people to discover, maximize, and manifest more of His God given identity He gave them, if I don't show up, then people will perish. If I don't show up, people will die, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. So I show up understanding that I don't want to go to the grave full of potential, and I'm not going full of potential. No, I am living life. I am determined. I am focused on helping empower you to be or embrace more of your identity, amplify your authority that you've been given, and dominate the space you've been called to without compromising your authentic value. That's my mission. That's why I'm here. And I'm here to serve you in that capacity. And I thank you for taking the time today to be on this live or be on this video session with me, not just for those now, but even those years from now, realizing that it's time for you to stand out as an empowered leader in an entitled world. Again, I'm Ricco McAdory. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, if this has been a blessing to you, hey, join or hit subscribe. We're at 785. Our goal, of course, is 1,000. And so if this content or what we're sharing, not only in this video, but we have other videos like You Must Work in Silence, Standing Out as a Thought Leader, even our podcast, Winning from Within podcast with Ricco S. McAdory. You'll see that on our channel as well. Subscribe to us and stay tuned because there's some more great things to come. But I wanted to come live this morning and share that impactful insight with you on your journey. All right. And until next time, I'll see you. God bless.